Welcome back, NPTEL students. This is week 4. In this week, we'll actually cover topics like identity resolution and privacy nudges. These are very, very relevant topics to privacy, and we'll also cover something around this topic also in this week. I hope you're enjoying the class. I hope you're able to consume the content, not necessarily only from the content that we discuss, but also watch the videos, have discussions in the mailing list. And I sincerely hope that you're also taking the topics outside just the NPTEL course, particularly having a conversation with your friends, having conversation with your parents, and also just when you're doing activities yourself, when you're buying a product on Amazon, or when you're ordering some food on Swiggy or on Zomato, you get this conscious about, oh, what's happening to my data? Are they doing what are the company's policies about the data that they collect from me and things like that? I think that kind of consciousness will come if you're involved in the class. I hope some of you are being conscious about all these activities, not necessarily only these ordering, but generally even having conversations with people. I think these are great ways to actually probe and understand the topics that you're learning from the class. Last week we covered privacy enhancing technologies, privacy invasive technologies, privacy decision making, and social media privacy. The idea being giving you a sense of what these technologies are, which can help you protect privacy, which are intruding your privacy. Both of it was the content that we saw in week 3. And great to have some of you on the mailing list active, but I would really like more people to participate in the mailing list. And if you have any questions about any of the content that we are covering, on even beyond that, actually, anything that is relevant to the course for the online privacy, feel free to put it on the mailing list, or if you want to send it to me, feel free to send it with the appropriate subject line so I get to see the email and have a discussion, either one-on-one or probably, as I've been suggesting, that we can do a one-to-many discussion where we discuss many questions together and take some interesting discussions forward. I requested you to watch this video and documentary. Good to see some discussions on the mailing list, but again, more people participate will be very nice. And the goal is also every week I'm going to get you to watch some of these videos, sometimes shorter, sometimes a little longer, just to get you connected to the topic outside just the content that we're seeing in the class. Okay, now let's get into the topic of identity resolution itself. As you look at this slide, right, just take a pen and a paper or even in your laptop, pause the video, and just write down your social media handles for any of these platforms or any others also. What is this? Facebook, LinkedIn, Insta, Twitter. All right. Go to your browser, go to your profile, take the URL and put it together in a sort of say text pad or something. Right, so you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, how many ever profiles that you have. If you look at them, right, there is some interesting questions that you can ask, which is in this case, it to start with, my Facebook handle is ponnurangam.kumaraguru. My Twitter handle, my Insta handle, actually this is my Insta and this is my Twitter. My Insta handle is pk.profgiri. My LinkedIn and Twitter handle is ponguru. Right. So now, if you want to go from one social network to another social network with this handle, for example, if I give you my Twitter handle, can you go from my Twitter handle to my Facebook handle? Can you find that with my Twitter handle, my Facebook handle? Or that's the first set of problem, which is given Twitter, can you go to Facebook? Second problem is, given my Twitter and Facebook handle, can you find it is the same person? Same handle, same user, all that. These are the two problems which can help. If you're able to address these two problems, many fundamental questions can be answered. I'll go through one by one, but for now, I'll let you to digest this question, which is, if you see your own profiles here, just look at your text pad now. And I'm sure many of you have handles which are like mine, where there is very many similarity between each and every profile, right? Ponnurangam Kumaraguru from Ponguru, there is this match. If you just do a edit distance of these two profiles, much larger, right? So you're able to find that many characters are overlapping. But if you look at my Insta handle and my Twitter handle, probably that is lesser. So similarly, I'm sure in your case, you're able to find out that where there are similarities, where there is dissimilarities, where it is varying differently, and all of that. I'm sure many of you have handles like completely different, right? For example, one thing that I've been saying is Prof CS. Let's take if I create if I create a Tinder account with Prof CS. So Prof CS is so much different from any of the others. I'm sure you have handles like that. Right. So this is identity, right? Identities on social media. And the question that we want to ask is, can we resolve them? Which is, can we actually do this or this? Why do we keep our handle same or different, right? I'll let you to think for a second. And if you think about it, right, there is many reasons to keep it simple, same. For example, in my case, I generally, for many years, I think, initial use of internet and emails, all that, I just had this Ponguru everywhere. It was Ponguru, meaning I think my CMU email address was ponguru at cs.cmu.edu, my Yahoo ID, my, so as you can see, my LinkedIn, my Twitter, all of that. Just to be consistent across handles, and anybody figuring out that, meaning who's Ponnurangam Kumaraguru in these accounts, finding Ponguru, they will just think that, okay, this is the same person who's using this handle. Hopefully, there are other things that may differ, but to start with. Why do you want to keep it different? You want to keep it different because you don't want people to figure out that it's the same person. So that's why this continuum will be very helpful to think about. We kind of discussed about this continuum even earlier about the anonymity, which is zero anonymity, which is keep the same handle in all platforms. So anybody coming to any of these handles will know that it's just PK here. All of them being, I mean, I want very high or so to say 100% anonymous I want to be. In that case, my handles will be different, and therefore people will not be able to find out that it's the same person. I'm sure you have other reasons. If you think of other reasons that are more plausible, I mean, I think in Twitter and all, people do the same. People try to change the handles because they want to also keep the characters lesser, right? Because if you were to 280 characters is their total. Imagine if I had a handle as Ponnurangam Kumaraguru. So many characters are getting lost in just trying for let's take, if people were to tag me and say something, if they were to do that, they're going to lose like 22 characters just by my user handle. Instead, Ponguru just helps because it's just about 6 or 7 characters, which allows them to write more 270 characters in the post, right? Meaning, I think the reason, one of the biggest reasons why people actually have these handles shorter is to save some space. But people have been also changing their usernames for many reasons, right? I'm sure you would have seen. Let's take during elections, there was this during 2019 elections. You would have seen many people adding Chowkidar on their Twitter handle or any of their social media handles. For example, IPL. People would probably add IPL 2020 in their Twitter handle, so that when somebody is searching for IPL, that handle actually shows up. Right? You want to keep it different. You want to keep it same. All this is happening on social media. So identity resolution is basically what I said, which is going from Ponguru to PK, or given PK, go to Ponguru. One of that, any of these combinations. Basic idea is I want to resolve the identity of a given user. So there is also so here very, very formally listed the reasons why identity resolution is needed is we use multiple devices, right? So I'm using my iPad to do the lecture. I have a laptop, I have a phone. So now giving multiple devices, the identity resolution does not have to be only in the social platform. It can be even figuring out all these three devices are the same users of PK. We use multiple platforms, right? Multiple platforms on multiple devices. We use multiple accounts on the same platform. For first lecture or the second lecture, I asked you how many of you have more than one handle on the same platform. If you use multiple accounts on the same platform, do you want the platform, or do you want an adversary to figure out that it is the same user who is actually on using this two accounts in the same platform? Resolving all of this has both business and other implications also, which we'll get in a few seconds. So knowing that it's all these three devices are of the same user helps providing personalization, helps providing content to me accordingly, all of that. The word identity resolution is also referred as entity resolution, profile matching. If you look for any of these words, they all mean the same. In this course, I'm going to use the word identity resolution consistently for referring to this idea of resolving identities across multiple devices, multiple platforms, same platform, multiple users, all of that. Right. So what are the business values of, or what is the value of doing identity resolution, right? Just think for a second. Take a second to think about what identity resolution is and why do identity resolution? So there's many reasons for identity resolution. Here are a couple of them that I've listed. Marketers, organizations spend less dollars. What does this mean, right? For example, if a company, Amazon, has to send ads to promote information of their new products, new sale day, all of that. If they know that Ponguru and Ponurangam.Kumaraguru is the same user, they can just send one ad instead of two ads, right? Let's take in the different platforms. Let's take if I was in my Facebook and in my Twitter, if Amazon has to send ad, right? Instead of two ads that they have to spend money on, they can just do only one, spend money, resources, any of that. They have to send only one now because they know that it's the same user. If they did not know that, they have to do two, which is probably increasing their expenses on doing these ads. I'll repeat again. Let's take for IIIT Hyderabad's scenario. If IIIT Hyderabad has to send an ad for its new program to the students in Hyderabad or to the parents in Hyderabad who have kids between a certain age, if we know that their handles on LinkedIn and Facebook are same, I have to send only one ad instead of two ads, because two ads is more expensive. Two is okay. Just think about it. If we were going to use Insta, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook as a platform to do this promotion, then I'm going to be spending 4 times potentially the cost what I'm otherwise to spend on it. That's one. Doing this identity resolution also helps the user experience across the devices to be more seamless, right? So my iPad is connected to my Gmail, my laptop is connected to my Gmail. If all of them are connected to the same account, it just helps moving information. For YouTube, I watch something here, my history gets created on my iPad. The same thing is available on my phone, so it's easy across multiple devices. This is using the same user. What I said now is just my own ID across, but even if that my own, I don't actually connect these devices to the same account, if it could be figured out, then actually your user experience can be much, much better. There's also the third reason why identity resolution becomes useful is actually at the law enforcement agencies level. Right. So same thing. Let's think that if PK handle is doing something malicious, for law enforcement to understand that whether they're targeting two user or one user, it just helps them. And if they have information from these two platforms which are different, right? For example, Facebook, they can get probably a stronger friends. In this, they can get all the accounts that they are following. So to get different pieces of information to solve the puzzle of identifying the, so to say, malicious actor in this sense, which is PK, it is easier for the law enforcement agencies if they can actually resolve the user. Is that making sense? I hope it is helping you to understand with these multiple examples, and keep your own user handles, look at them again. You'll get a sense that resolving that will help in some of the ways that I just now said. Of course, going back to the point of the spectrum, of course, this resolution will be harder for people who actually want to have 100% anonymity on these platforms. I consciously want to stay away from being resolved. Then for them, I think putting their handles together is probably not something that they're going to like. Right. You yourself, I also mentioned this previously, that you yourself may be having multiple accounts on the same platform, and you consciously must be also keeping the content, keeping the network, all of that separately. Imagine if Facebook figuring it out, it's you, or Facebook, the platform that you're on, is the same user, is probably slightly more easier. But if somebody else were to figure it out, maybe something that you don't like, you don't want. Here is so even though the explanations that I'm giving you now, until now I've been giving you all the social media examples, this topic has been very, very prominent across many years now in a much more classical and a fundamental way. Here is an example to look at. So all these three are research papers written by, so the first topic is, the first paper is use of a P3P user agent by early adopters. And if you see that author, right, that's Lori Faith Craner. A field trial for privacy, not just for Facebook. This is a paper that we'll also look at in the course. This has Lori Faith Craner. And then the last one here, the effect of online privacy information on purchasing behavior, an experimental study. This has Lori Craner in it. Okay. And let's keep this as 1, 2. Let's keep this as 3. All right. In 1, Lori Faith Craner. In 2, Lori Faith Craner. And 3, Lori Craner. Now, in 1, the affiliation is actually different, which is AT&T Labs. In 2, the affiliation is CMU. In 3, the affiliation is CMU. Again, the name match between 1 and 2 is common. The affiliation match between 2 and 3 is common. Right? Now, how do you figure out that it's the same person? That's the question. And this question has been primarily studied in databases, studied in understanding, which meaning citations, researchers' name has to be added, this paper. All of these questions can actually be answered once you figure this out. Right? Just think about it. It's a super interesting problem, and it's also a slightly hard problem, right? Some cues that you can get, which is easier here. Probably there's also this idea called, oh, let's also look at the topics. If you look at what P3P is, again, right, platform for privacy preferences. So you will find privacy common in all the 3. So can you now put together saying, oh, probably all three are same person because of AT&T and the temporal information available may also help. This must have been in probably early 2000s. This must be 2010 or something. This must be 2015. So if you have the temporal information also, you'll be able to say that, look, I think probably earlier the association was AT&T, and then she moved to CMU, and then in CMU, she's been working on privacy, and these two papers have CMU affiliation. Probably it's the same percent. And you can look at other information of, okay, some other articles that she has written with AT&T is very similar to privacy here, blah, 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 all that, right? So this is a classical identity resolution problem. The importance of change, the important fundamental thing that changed in the examples that I told you earlier on this is that in this, I am not going to create and write a paper with Lori Faith Craner as a name, right? Because when I write a paper, I want to have the attention for the paper, citations for the paper. People should read and know that I did this work. Whereas in social platforms, I could easily have an account called Lori Faith Craner and run it legitimately also, right? So that's the fundamental difference between the classical paper DBLP area versus the social platform, because the assumption that the users have more credibility and doing it with their name is not there in the social platform. So therefore, the problem becomes much harder. This problem is definitely hard. It's not that trivial, so to say. If you go to the social platforms, it gets much more harder. Right? At least here, Lori Craner and Lori Faith Craner, the edit distance you can find more of overlaps is there, but just Punguru and Prof Giri, it's super hard to go from one to other or figure out that it's the same person. Why identity resolution is a privacy topic, right? So if you just think about it for a second again, the anonymity topic that we talked about is what makes it interesting, makes it relevant to privacy. So more the profile is resolved, less the privacy for a user in case if the user wants, right? It's the same thing that I said earlier about the spectrum. The more I want to have anonymity, if my accounts are getting resolved, then my privacy is getting lost, right? So that's the idea. That's the idea why, that's the relationship why identity resolution is more a privacy question. I don't want my identity to be resolved, and using the information that is available, technologies, platforms, companies can actually resolve it. Yeah. Here is my own profile. So I'm sure you can pause the video if you want in a second, and then go look at your own profiles. Earlier I asked you to open the browser and do it, right? Go to the same browser, all the tabs with your profiles. Now look at your own profile. What all things that you can look at in your profile to decide that it's the same user or a different user. Right, so it becomes meaning this is feature engineering, right? You're looking at the context and you're saying that what features can help me make the choice that this is actually the same user or different users. Let's go through in my profile, which will help you to think about in your profile, I guess. So I can look at profile picture. You can do some matching and say that, oh, it looks probably the same user. Probably a little harder in this because the profile picture itself is different. And then I'll also show you the other two platforms, so probably it may be simpler. So here, if you see the background image in these two, in these three, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter seems to be the same background picture, cover picture, so to say. The profile picture of these two seems to be exactly the same. Probably that's the one cue that you want to keep. Profile picture, cover picture, Of course, the name and everything we already saw before, but let's do a little bit more. So if you look at this part, let's look at this part, right? If you look at this part, which is, it says, Prof. Giri, Triple ID Hyderabad, visiting professor, ACM council member, blah, blah, blah. If you look at this, it's exactly the same. Some characters are not shown here. Probably it's just a space constraint. If you look at this, it's exactly the same. Probably it's the same here too. All right. So now you can actually look at profile picture, cover picture, profile information itself. What have I written in my profile? Right. So you can use all that to figure out that it is the same user potentially. So these are features that you can think of, right? These are features I'm sure when you look at your own profile, you can actually look at them and then think about any other interesting profiles. I'm sure if you think about it for a second, you can come up with many more lists. I think there are a lot more features you can use. For example, the other very useful feature has been time of the post. When does the post come in each of the platforms? Right? What is the post itself? Right, I do. So if you're curious to look at it, go take a look at my profile, any of the posts, any platforms. All of them will be exactly same. For Twitter, I probably will cut off some characters because of character limits, but exactly the same content that I will post in probably few seconds difference in time between the posts that I do. So which is to say that users have behavior. Probably I'm not a representative user in this sense, which is when somebody is posting the content in multiple platforms, what is the need for it? I don't know how many people do that, and I don't know how many people actually have the behavior of, oh, let's just post next to each other. But post content is definitely one of the features that has been very, very useful to decide whether it's the same user. I just listed the same thing here. Profile picture, cover picture, time of the post, cross posting, profile info, having another network details. I'll tell you what this is. I'll tell you what this is also in a second. Network also, let's discuss. Cross posting is this: I take the content, I do a post on Twitter, I take the content from Twitter and then go post it on LinkedIn, the same content. Earlier, I used to actually do something like a few years before. Facebook provides, even now, Facebook provides you a lot more storage space in terms of pictures. You can upload a lot more pictures in one post also. So I will do, let's take 50 pictures in one post, take the link from Facebook, go do a post on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Insta saying here are the pictures, because Twitter allows me to post only 4 pictures in one post. So therefore I kind of say that, look, there are more pictures of the event that I'm talking about. Here is the link. So now I've cross posted the link, and now there is a high probability that you can find out that it's the same user, because when in Twitter, when such posts are done, it creates an fb.me, which I'll talk about it later. Also fb.me. So now you can actually make some connect between the users because of this. So that's cross posting. Profile info, having other network details. I don't have, for example, if you look at it here, I don't say that what are my, in Facebook, I don't say my Twitter handle, or in Twitter, I don't say my Insta handle. But you will see many profiles do that, which is they would go share their other platform profiles in this platform, right? Put it like have your Twitter handle on your Insta handle, have your Insta handle on your LinkedIn profile. Network is also a good feature, right? Which is the followers that I have on Twitter, the followings that I have on Twitter, how different or similar is it from LinkedIn? My connections on LinkedIn, how different is it from my Facebook friends that I have? Different, similar, I think it's the same question asked in a different ways. So now if the network is very similar, there is an overlap of, if you take my LinkedIn and if you take my Facebook, if the overlap is like that, there is again high chance that it's the same user, right? Getting this data is going to be a little harder. In all platforms, you can't get this details so conveniently. But if you get it, if you find this, and for some user, let's take if the overlap is like that, it's of no use, right? Probably this is of different users, right? So that's how network is useful. I'm sure when for students taking this class, if you think for yourself, you may have actually created two networks, and where you have consciously kept the network far away from each other, which helps to actually share content differently, have different kinds of conversations on these platforms, interact with different sets of people, all of that also. So username features. So just by username, you can actually do a lot of interesting things. This slide is showing you what are features from the username itself you can use. Right, similar length, similar choices of characters, similar arrangement of characters, evolution of lengths, as I said, Punguru, IPL 2021, right? So all of that, evolution of choice of characters, evolution of arrangement of characters, right? Common username which is IPL 2021, best similarity score, again you match two different handles, second best similarity score, common username set. If you look at users, so this is also a very interesting feature that one can use, which is to resolve, is not just the current username, right? For example, if you look at my handle currently, you see that this is Punguru, this is Punguru, this is pk.profgiri, and this is punurangam.kumarguru, right? Interestingly, about few months back, I think in June, until June, my handle of Insta was pk at triple ITD. I don't know whether this can resolve with other handles now. But if you had the access to the earlier usernames, which is not comparing only what my handle is right now, if you compare it with the earlier user handles, is it more effective? It looks like it is effective. People have shown that it is effective if you actually use the prior usernames. That's the set, what is shown here. This whole set. Reuse patterns, which is I had Punguru in Twitter earlier. Now I have it as pk.profgiri. And so now, and my LinkedIn has always been Punguru. So when you compare current LinkedIn with current Insta handle, you're not going to get the comparison. Whereas if you compare it with the earlier handles, you probably make it more. I have a slide which is to show you more details, but I'm just getting you the idea here. Temporal ordering, temporal sync, which is time, right? When did I have what handle can actually make a difference in resolving the user. So here is a slide with some details of how the usernames are in temporally done. So this is Twitter, right? And so if you see the handles here, all the handles that are in bold, right, are the handles that you can see in Insta also, in the same order, right? So first this came here, this user handles here, and this user handles here. One question that I would like to ask you is how many times have you changed any particular username in any of the platforms? I've not changed it very frequently. This is the first time I remember changing my user handle for how long I've been using social networks. But there are people who change it very regularly. When you collect data, you will see that a lot of people change their handles very frequently also, because I think there are many reasons for it. So in this case, if you see, this is the one I'm saying. Let's take, if you were to compare this and this. Let's take our snapshot of comparison as A and B. In that case, then I think the comparison is going to fail, right? Saying that, oh, probably this looks very different and therefore they are not the same user. Whereas if you use the past, then there's this high probability that you're going to converge that this user is the same user. Because not just the same username has been kept, even temporally it looks like the change has been the same, right? The order of change of this handle has been same, but in Twitter there has been more additions in between the two. For example, there are 3 changes here before they went from A to B. Before they went from A to B, whereas here there's only 1 change from A to B. Right. Therefore, this becomes the prior username becomes much more useful in figuring out whether it's the same user or not. So this is the one of the papers. So what we'll do is we'll go to the papers in few seconds to look at what the paper is. But this is the paper that I mentioned, or this is the idea that I mentioned earlier, which is you do a post on Facebook, take the link from Facebook, go do a post on Twitter. It'll show up as fb.me, so you can actually figure out that there's highly likely that it's the same user. It could be that you go take a Facebook link of the pictures that I posted and post it on your Twitter handle. Still the fb.me will come, and probably in that case the resolution may be wrong. So the next idea is or continuing this idea of, okay, now that we know resolution can be done, how to do it, what features can be used. Again, this is wide area, so I can't do justice in the amount of time that we have for this class and for this topic in the course. But we'll see. As of now, we only saw the idea of taking a user handle, comparing it with either the same handle or a different handle, and figuring out what features to use to resolve that particular user. Let's continue looking at the topic of identity resolution itself. And this one is an idea about nudging users, which is, see, when you know that your account is getting resolved, can we actually tell you that your account is getting resolved, and therefore you can change your behavior? That's the idea. Let's look at some of the related papers, right? So these are papers that will show up later on though in the slides. So this paper is about other times, other values, leveraging attribute history to link user profiles across social networks, which is again building on all of this work of, okay, what all features can you actually put together to resolve users? Again, we will not have time to go through all the details of all the papers. But let me highlight some of it, and again, for the interest of for the students who are interested in, feel free to go take a look at it, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun in getting more details about it. So this graph is actually an interesting one, which shows that the question that I asked you, right? How many of you have changed how many characters in the user profiles, or what are the other details of your account you have actually changed? This graph is showing you the details of username, name, description, location, language, zone, and profile picture. These are the details that users can change. This is the percentage of users of some data that was collected. This is the number of times that that feature was changed. How do you read this graph? This says that about, let's take 2% of users here changed the profile picture twice. This one is probably 40% or 35% of users changed their profile picture 3 times in the period in which the data was collected, which also would show that profile picture has been probably about 10% of the users actually changed their profile picture 5 times during the time the data was collected. phenomenal, right? Number of people who are changing their accounts. This kind of information actually helps you to think about user behavior, make some actually interesting inferences to build technologies, to build policies, all that around. People have changed their username also a bit. And then during elections, if you were to draw the same graph, it would be actually very different because people actually changed a lot more times. So people have changed their name, people have changed their more number of times, so to say. People have changed their description. For example, I change my description very frequently. Let's take 5-6 times a year, because something changes in the profile. So for example, I moved from Triple ID Delhi to Triple ID Hyderabad. I got into ACM Council, I added that. All of this, you give a TED talk and then you add that, right? All of that edits probably is happening in the description of the profile itself. Location, less number of people have changed. Language and zone, probably even lesser number of people have changed it, right? So this information can be very, very useful in deciding strategies for actually doing identity resolution. So this one is about looking at different, so this figure is actually helping you to understand, given two profiles, what do you do to get to the whether they are the same profile or not. Social network A, social network B, user here. Do all the similarity features that we talked about, similarity between the network, similarity between the username, profile picture, all of that, and then figure out whether it's the same user, right? So yeah, past information can be very useful. Again, comparison, right? So I'll let you to go through this to understand more about what is going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a web page, which I'll float it for all the students, where the slides in the annotated slides, because I think you're getting the video here, but it'll also be nice for you to have the annotated slides side by side to actually use it wherever appropriate. And I will also have all the supplementary content added to the website for each and every week, so that you can go to all these papers yourself, take a look at it. So on the dynamics of user change behavior on Twitter, this was same graph. This is the first paper which looked at the change in the user behavior of the users. We actually tried some interesting things also, but it was slightly harder, which was, so can you, let's take for example, you are changing your Twitter handle. Through our data collection, we know that you're changing the user handle. Can we actually come back to you with, let's take a tweet where you're tagged saying, oh, look, you've changed your profile username. Can you fill the survey and tell us why you're changing it, all that? One can argue that this is also privacy intrusive. You're studying privacy and then you're going to the users and asking them, oh, probably the question is, who are you to actually do the tracking of me to figure out when I change the user handle and why I'm changing it, right? Interesting questions there. Nudging Nemo, this is another interesting work, which is to show the users, which is Nemo is the user here. Can you nudge users to change the behavior? I clubbed this identity resolution and the privacy nudges together for week 4. Again, this nudging is an interesting topic in the context of privacy. We look at all this in the form of slides in a second, right? So nudging Nemo. So this is about helping users to make choice about this resolution. So the idea here is look at these users details, username here, username here, username here, and then some output here. Your focus is here. So for example, in this case, the Twitter, the Facebook handle of the user. So the linkability score meter is actually saying that it's low, because if you look at this username, and probably the name, location, URL, right? It's hard to say that it's the same user, at least with this information that is given here. Compared to this user, which is linkability score is high, because if you see the name, which is exactly the same, probably the edit distance between the username is pretty, the match is very high. New York is the same, and the URL is also the same. So the idea for us is to create the score now. What are ways to create the score? Feature extraction we saw, but what are the ways to create this score is what we will be looking at. Right. So in this case, in this figure, how are we finding? So these are different methods to do the resolution: Nemo, Hydra, Mobis. These are systems. Nemo is the one that is proposed here, but Hydra and Mobius are the systems that is already there, which does these kind of comparison of users and figure out whether it's the same user. So user starts or some platform selection, which is I decide that I want to share my Twitter and my Facebook authentication with the Nemo. And so it says authentication request, which is for a third party, which is other than you. If I have to get access to your account, I have to have your approval in some sense, right? That's what is happening here. Authentication request is being done so that the app, third party app that I have built, that you're using, gets access to your user information. Authorization is done, and then data for the user is collected. So this is an app, Nemo. Let's assume that Nemo is the app that you're actually downloading and using. You are authenticating Nemo to go collect data on behalf of you from Facebook and Twitter. That's what has happened until now. All right. And the data is coming into Nemo, Hydra and Mobis, and then the feature selection, as we saw before, what I was building you to find your own features is here, and then some algorithm. All the methods will have different algorithms, right? You can say that, look, I don't want to look at profile picture. I want to look at network more. I don't have features of pictures, and therefore I will remove all the pictures and do the comparisons. You can do innumerable number of ways of actually figuring out the match. And now then the input is given saying which features work, and then the linkability score is created. Right. So that's what a simple system like Nemo would work, how it works. Taking input, taking approval from the user, figuring out the features from the user, and using that to find whether what the linkability score is. What is the probability that the handles can be linked? So that was the architecture for finding out linkability score given to social networks. So here is how you can actually present this linkability score to the user in different ways. One of the ways is presented here, which is, so this one is actually a Facebook post that the user is trying to do. This is already a tweet that the user has posted. Now, this post is very similar to this. So you're actually telling the user saying that, look, this post is very similar. Do you still want to continue doing it? That's why there's a red border around the text here to show that the post that you're doing on Facebook is very similar to the post that you're done on Twitter. Therefore, the linkability is higher. Do you still want to do it? In this case, this post is very different from this post, and therefore it's green color. And so the linkability is not there for the post and for the content, for the time, all of that. And therefore the user can make a choice accordingly. So this is just one mechanism by which the information about the nudge can be shown. But this nudge can be done in many different ways. This is only looking at posts. Let's take if you're going to your profile and changing the, we saw earlier, right? Changing the location from, let's take in my case, Delhi to Hyderabad. if I were to do that, the system can also say that, look, you're doing it in Hyderabad, moving to Hyderabad from your other profiles also, it is shown that it is in Hyderabad. Now it's easier to actually profile that it's here. And so you make a choice whether you want to change that Hyderabad or not, right? So that's another way of actually presenting. Another feature where you can actually give this nudge to the user. Every update, update that we saw where a user is doing a change in description and profile picture, these kind of nudges can be done very, very easily. So this is a dashboard which is actually providing information about the linkability score, right? Which is basically saying the linkability score between Twitter and Facebook is 0.74, which is higher. The higher the value is, the more linkable the accounts are. The lower the value is, the harder the linkabilities, or it is hard to figure that these two profiles are same. So it's only 0.26 between Twitter and Instagram. And what are these? These are basically features that have contributed in figuring out that the score there. And it also gives you proportion of how much those features contributed in the linkability score, right? So what does this help? This helps the user to get a good view of where the linkability is possible, how much the linkability is, which features are getting contributed into the linkability score. So this is basically building on this architecture, getting this linkability score. How this is presented to the user is what this chart is showing you here. This is a dashboard. So again, if you see, this can be seen for different platforms. So you can actually get a sense of through Nemo how much the linkability score is, and depending on that you make your choice. You as a user make your choice, right? That makes user more comfortable in making the choices, or more informed. I think the fundamental thing that we are also looking for is informed decision making, right? So now let's slightly delve into detail about linkability score itself, right? It's just representing the same content that we have already spoken, or features that we have already spoken. It just gives you a few metrics that you can actually use to find out, given the input of the features, right? So this is two username given. You can do a Jaro-Winkler distance, simply edit distance between the two users, and you can get a similarity score. Then the name of the two, again a distance metric and a score. Two locations given, right? Now you can say that you can find out substring of the locations given. Can you find out the lat long? Can you reverse look up the location? Let's take if it says that I'm from Hyderabad. Can you reverse look up, get a lat long, and then in the different network get the lat long of the same user and do some comparison of the lat long, do some comparison of the text that says Hyderabad, Secunderabad, Cyberabad, all of that. Right. So that's what this comparison is doing, and then similarly a score can be got for a location. This is two pictures, profile pictures taken using computer vision techniques. Can you actually find out how similar, how different these pictures are? Provide a score for that and use that score. Profile image score, use that score for finding the linkability score. This is posts, exact posts, the same example that I showed you here. It takes the entire post and then find the distance, cosine distance between the posts that you've done in multiple platforms, and use that to argue whether it is same or different. Find a score which adds to the linkability score. Right. So you can get all of these similarity scores: username, name, location, profile image, content. You can keep adding this, right? You can keep adding this as network, many other features that we saw. You can add it, and then you do some method here. Here it says average, but you can figure out any function that you want to do, and then a linkability score is derived. We saw 0.4, 0.5, 0.24 earlier slide. These values are derived only like that, and these contribute into creating these values, right? So that should give you a sense of how the linkability score can be got. If you put all of this together into one diagram, this is how it'll look. I'll also walk you through what the diagram is and how it can be done. So here is a user. User is trying to do a post or an update, profile change. So update is being done, post is done. Same post, if you look at it, same post that I showed you earlier. It's a green color, so it is different. It's a red color, it is same. That's the post side. Right. So this is the dashboard that I showed you. The user can get access to the dashboard, and then using the dashboard, they can also see that the 0.74, 0.24 values in the browser, so they can make a choice of how linkable the profile is. Profile image being changed, profile being changed, and then here there is an information about the Hyderabad Delhi example that I gave. Somebody is changing a profile information from Delhi to Hyderabad. You're nudging the user saying, look, this can actually increase the linkability. Right? So then of course all of these decisions are made with a threshold, right? You want to make a meaning. For me, the linkability score 0.9 is also there. Don't bother, I don't really care. Let the resolution happen. But for some people it could be just 0.2. This is the same thing as spectrum that I mentioned earlier. Depending on the threshold, you make a choice saying that, look, this is above the threshold, lower the threshold, all of that. Okay, I hope that makes sense. In terms of three different components of the decision making itself, this is the browser extension, this is the server which is making all the choices, this is the linkability score computing and presenting the values, and of course the Nemo, Hydra, and Mobis are all of them use the same kind of architecture to decide the score. So this is an experiment that was done to show that the nudging is actually working, nudging actually helping users to make the choice, all of that. This is 12 participants. The way to look at this graph is, so you look at all the participants here. This is the time, right? Minutes since start of the experiment. These are the different activities that was done. So for example, post, profile change, configuration changes, then green post box, which is when the comparison was similar, red post box, notification pop-up that is presented to the user, and the user went and saw the pie chart. So everything that I showed you here is captured. So now what can you do? Using that, you can argue that, look, the users actually end up, if you look at the chart, there are people who are going and changing deciding to change the post, deciding to change the profile, deciding to change the profile picture, all of that, depending on the nudge that the Nemo is providing them. Right. The argument is that such a nudge will help users make better choices. Such a nudge will help user behavior change, and which is probably more keeping in mind the linkability score of the user itself. Moving on with the identity resolution, some of the research work done on the reliability of profile matching. Since you remember I said the different words for identity resolution itself earlier. So profile matching is one idea where people had worked. This work was one of the initial works to look at this on social networks. So this work is based on the username changing, so which is the one that I told you earlier, Punguru to Profgiri. Can you use the earlier part of the username change, whatever usernames that users had, to make a choice whether the user that you're comparing is the same or different? This paper I already showed you. Let me go through the papers again before we finish. So this is the architecture that I already showed you in detail. So this paper walks you through more details about every image that I showed you, walking through the different parts of the linkability. This is the paper I had referred now on the reliability of profile matching across large social networks, deciding on linkability again. They gave some mathematical foundation for how the linkability should be done, everything. And this is the Facebook and the Twitter comparison paper that I mentioned in the slides. Using the Facebook post, even today, actually, if you look at the post, let's take if you're listening to music on Spotify and you want to share it on Twitter, you click a button, share it on social, and it gets posted on Twitter. The link in Twitter will be same as open.spotify.com for all posts that you're doing from Spotify to from Spotify to Twitter, right? So if you do that, now any analysis that you could do on Spotify could be easily done collecting data from Twitter, right? So that's the idea here. Some of these things we already discussed in terms of how the profile matching should be done, what metrics to use, and why people are actually changing the usernames, all that. Right. So that gives you a sense of what the identity resolution, some of the work is. Here is my activity for this week. One part of the activity for this week. Take two similar looking profiles like mine on platforms. Example, Insta, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of that. Don't take mine. Please take somebody else's. What suggestions or recommendations would you suggest so the resolution fails, which is, in my case, Ponguru in Twitter, right? Ponguru in LinkedIn, same profile picture, all of that. What would you suggest PK to do so that this resolution, actually, when any techniques are applied, the resolution should fail? We have already discussed some of them. I hope you can actually put them together and share it on the mailing list. We can take a look at it. I hope you'll come up with some interesting ideas. So that wraps up the identity resolution part, which is essentially the idea for figuring out, given to users, can you identify whether they are the same user, which has many different applications. So we'll stop here with the identity resolution and we'll continue with privacy nudges.